Okay, we are on filmsgonewild.com. My name is John Wildman. I'm the editor-in-chief of Films Gone Wild, and we're going to continue doing our interviews from the Dances with Films LA at the Chinese Theater, Novation here in Hollywood Highland. All right, introduce us to this film we're going to talk about.
Yes, so my film is called One But Many, and it's a feature documentary about human-wildlife conflict in Africa.
And tell us who you are.
I'm Jana Giacopo. I'm the filmmaker and the producer.
Okay. This is one, and when I see documentaries like this, I instantly go, okay, the challenge is going to be giving us the facts and also inspiring us on the call to action. And I think this does this very well. And how I want you to start talking about it is literally your entry into that world. And so how did you find yourself in the middle of it? And then, because based on what you saw, based on what was going on, then what inspired you to say, I've got to do something?
Yeah, so I am a photographer as well, and I was on a photo work assignment in Kenya and Rwanda, and we just had a random day that we went to a baby elephant orphanage. And I'm a sort of natural researcher, so I ask a lot of questions. And I kept asking, what happened to this baby? How did this one get orphaned? How did that one get orphaned? And each time I asked, the answer was human-wildlife conflict. And as a conservationist and an animal lover, I knew what that term meant, but I had no idea the scale of how big of a problem it was, especially in Africa with African wildlife. So that was the beginning of it, and the rest of the trip became my first almost like research project where I just learned so much more about it.
I mean, and the reality is, you could make a mini series, because there's so much to talk about and there's so much to go into. You could be a much better looking version of David Attenborough, in delving into this, and he's amazing. And so narrowing it down just to what you did, and even though it's narrowed down, it's still a huge scope of what you encounter. Talk about the struggle for that to just go, okay, we have a little less than an hour and a half, to get this in. Otherwise, people will tune us out, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I think we need a drink for this one. This is so it's interesting you say that, because it actually started as a doc series. Because of what you just said, the scope is so massive, and to really shine light on the kind of nuts and bolts, you kind of want 8 episodes. So the first trip was pre-pandemic, and I cobbled together, again, I'm always very open, this is a very grassroots indie project that was just like interview, $2,000 after $500, to get to the next thing that you needed. And so I wanted to shoot something for a pilot, and we shot 30 hours, we had a lot of footage. Got back, started trying to figure out where I was going with it, and the pandemic happened. And during that process, I knew we weren't going to get a travel show off the ground, and I had enough footage to do a feature. So it became the necessity of the mother of invention thing, but so I know that's just one part of your question.
We could go on and on with this interview.
Yeah.
All right, but here's the next question. You're a photographer, so getting amazing footage, of the elephants and the lions and cheetahs and that. I'm going, well, yeah, of course, that's what she does. Of course, she's going to get a gorgeous footage of the animals. But to make something like this really sing is getting your singers, which are the people that are going to talk about this, and getting them to agree to be on camera, and getting them to agree to actually talk and say out loud the things that you need to hear. Talk about how you approached that and what challenges you faced.
I mean, everything about documentary is impossibly hard, right? I always say it's like filmmaking in reverse, because you shoot the movie and now you're writing the script, and then you're shooting another movie and writing a new script. So it was, but the getting people to talk to me, especially at the beginning, was the hardest part. Because I would send emails. I hadn't done a Nat Geo doc. I wasn't a name. I didn't have money to offer for media fees. So classic documentary challenges. And I just would give them my pitch, nobody would get back to me. Nobody would get back to me. And so it was kind of just being relentless until I had a family friend connection that had a connection to Lewa Wildlife Conservancy, which is who we look at as the solutions model. And I talked to this woman who was like, this story is the Lewa story. Like, you have to film at Lewa. And I'm like, well, no one will talk to me. So then that was the first door. She got them to let me come film. And then it was just like leveraging, like, well, we're filming here. Somebody else gets passionate about it, makes a call for you, and then it kind of snowballed. But it's a huge challenge, to get experts to speak to you. Yeah.
Well, and I wonder, and I always kind of wonder, when I talk about, I talk to a documentarian like yourself, like, if there's ever like the dramatic moment that ironically you only see in movies where, like, 3 a.m. you get a phone call and going, you want to hear the truth about this? I'll tell you. And then you go, oh my God, that person.
Yeah.
They showed up. Did you have any of those moments where somebody just came out of the woodwork and going, holy shit, thank God.
I had a holy shit moment where the thing that made me go, I'm telling this story. This is the story, I might not know how I'm going to tell it yet, but I know what the story is. I'd come back from the trip, in Africa, the first trip, knew about human-wildlife conflict, looked for other things about it, thinking I had missed docs on it. There wasn't. I was like, okay. And then a few months later, Botswana, the country of Botswana, announces they might reverse the elephant hunting ban. And I was aware that the U.S. had just lifted the import trophy ban on elephants that had been a years-long thing, and it was kind of a big controversy. And I went, wait a second, and they were citing human-wildlife conflict as the reason they were going to start shooting elephants. I went, number one, that doesn't make sense, and scientifically it's not accurate. You actually make elephants and animals like them more aggressive. So I had this theory that there was a connection between Botswana lifting their hunting ban and the U.S. Cut to 2.5 years later, I'm interviewing Eduardo Goncalves, who's a big advocate to ban trophy hunting, and I had him on a Zoom interview to ask one question, and then he told me that he wrote his book about this issue. And I said, wait a second, is there a connection? And he said, there's not just a connection, it's the reason they lifted the ban, and proceeded to send me documents that we show in the film that show the internal, like there was fake news campaigns to make it look like Africans wanted this in Botswana, and the U.S. behind it, not the entire United States, right? But U.S. tax dollars, etc. So that was the biggest holy shit moment, because it was the seed, and then it was 2.5 years later, someone saying, here's the proof that little nudge you had was correct. So it was kind of wild.
Okay, so you make this. Mm-hmm. And again, it is a call to action film in a lot of different ways. So then, and you've spent years just trying to make the goddamn movie, mm-hmm. and becoming so enmeshed, so embedded in the details and the minutia and the updates and and all the stuff. So effectively, when a filmmaker does that and it comes out, they become the expert in everybody's eyes, because we just watched this movie, so now you're doing a Q&A going, well, tell us about this and tell us about this and whatever, and I'm always fascinated to hear, filmmaker by filmmaker, how much you're either okay with that, or how much you embrace that, or how much that's just going to be a pain in the ass that you dread. Mm-hmm. So where do you fall within that spectrum?
I fall in the, if I can provide information that I think is important for people, then I'm happy to be a person that can provide it, because it is an underrepresented global crisis. And I have sort of become that person that you're saying. And I'm a founder of it's called the Human Wildlife Project. It's a nonprofit dedicated to this mission of helping people and wildlife coexist. And we started in Zambia last year with Zambian founders, and encountered, basically, I walked into the same scenario my film is about. But interestingly, being on the ground in Zambia, the solutions that people in Kenya might be doing to live with wildlife, they're not necessarily aware of. So I'm bringing the film to them, saying, hey, look at what Lion Guardians is doing, look what NRT is doing. And the communities are going, oh my God, this is amazing. So I think at this point, if we have the ability to share helpful information, knowledge, truth, then I'm happy to be any part of that. That's why I made the film.
Right. And screening is when?
Today,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
getting
to-
ready to go.
I know it's today.
2:30.
All right.
2:30.
Okay.
It's Sunday.
All right. And remind me, is this world premiere? Or
Yeah.
not? This is world
Yeah,
premiere.
it
So this will be
is.
your first chance to see it with an audience.
Yes.
I have to assume that you know this film is teed up to have a really solid tour. One, because there's a nice subset of environmentally focused film festivals.
Yeah.
You know, and even the mainstream fest beyond that. I have to think that that they'd be delighted to have you here. So I have to think you're going to be having to go over your talking points a lot, Joan.
I hope so. I hope so. You know what we are doing? We're screening for Parliament in the UK in
Oh,
September.
shit.
Yeah, with one of the people in the film. So because it's really about trying to shift policy and bring awareness. So that one I know I'm excited about that coming together.
Well, again, screening today at Dances with Films LA. Congratulations.
Thank you, John. Nice to meet you.